Hey, welcome everybody. So we're here at the copywriting section. You've heard me note before that if you're marketing to everybody, then you're marketing to nobody. So your client avatar sheet is really important here. So if you filled that out, great. We're going to hear from Catherine about how to write from the soul. So one of the things I see a lot of people do is in their copy, it's either bland and just like everybody else, especially in the coaching sphere, or they're talking about their product. Nobody wants to buy a product. They want to buy from people. So they want to hear about your authentic voice. They don't like, so if you're selling windows or if you're selling coaching or if you're selling, you're a business coach, um, what you see a lot is business coaching. Nobody cares about that, right? What they do want is more leads to their business. They want automation. They don't want windows. They want a home that looks like their dream home. They don't want to buy jewelry from you. They want to buy the feeling that they're getting into their divine feminine or treating themselves to something that they never gave themselves before. So I want you to start thinking on your copy in those terms, like what are you solving for someone and why are you the person to solve it for them? So I am going to pass over to Catherine, who is the expert on the subject and has graciously decided to give us a masterclass in here for us. So I am super excited to welcome you, Catherine. Please go ahead and let us know what you do and give us your take on copywriting.
All right. Hi, I'm Catherine, and my normal portion of life when it comes to writing is I do a lot of editing for authors who are in the spiritual sphere. And what I really end up working with them a lot prior to actually even doing the editing is we talk a lot about their authentic writing voice because we need in our lives to be our authentic selves. And imposter syndrome is totally real. And we totally all have it. That's something that we got taught in school because we were taught how to write. We were taught what we should write. We were taught that the teacher's opinion was more right than our opinion was, or we were taught that our classmates had more say in what our paper should look like through their learning how to do peer editing and peer reviewing. And one of those things is though is that we ourselves have lost in a lot of ways our ability to do our authentic writing and our authentic self writing. And so one of the biggest things that you have to do is you kind of have to relax yourself again back into doing authentic writing, because it's really easy to go out and you can take a course and they can tell you you have to write it this way and this is the way order you need to do and this is exactly, and those are all good things, like they're all good basis, but it's not you. It's somebody else teaching you and then you're just mimicking what that person is telling you to do. Instead, if you relax back into that authentic voice and your authentic you, you're pulling in those people who really want to work with you, who are really meant to work with you, and who really want to be your clients when they actually can read you versus reading me or reading your next door neighbor or reading the coach that lives halfway around the world who's offering the exact same things you're doing. All of these things really matter ultimately because there are 8 billion people on the planet and you don't want to be calling in and pulling into your business all 8 billion people because some of those people are just not going to be in the right space to work with you for whatever reason. You know, you talk about dream clients and you talk about those client nightmares, right? Everybody can have both types of those clients, but it's all based on the copy you're actually writing. So, one of the things that I actually ask my clients to do is to really sit and they need to think about their ideal client or ideal client avatar, just depending on however you want to look at the terminology. I sometimes look at it as my soul contracts because the people that I'm supposed to be pulling in are my soul contracts and they are my ideal clients. And maybe sometimes I get other people to go along with my ideal clients that aren't just my soul contracts. But one of those things is that when you look at what your ideal client is, who you envision that client that's going to make your life so much easier and you're going to make their lives a million times better by teaching them whatever coaching or whatever your business provides them. I mean, really, I like to enjoy reading somebody who's telling me, this is what I actually have gone through, and this is what I have actually done. And I can resonate with that person because I understand that they've gone through something that I went through, or I'm doing something that maybe they have a better solution for. Because we're human and we're always looking for solutions to make our lives better. And
Mhm.
that's one of those things that's really, really important. So for me, it really requires the relaxing into the writing itself, which is really kind of sometimes difficult because you've had all this training all through school on how you have to write. So I would like to have you do something really quickly, just for a few minutes. And what I really want you to do is I want you to think back to about the time you were 12. And the reason I want you to think back to the time you were 12 is that's before you had all the teenage stuff that got started layering on who you're supposed to be for the most part. 12 is about the sweet spot. So if you think back to when you're 12 and you think about the things that you enjoyed doing and the things that you enjoyed seeing and the places you enjoyed going, those activities, those experiences all give a hint to you as how to relax while you're sitting and starting to actually do the writing yourself for what you need to do for your copy. So, like for me, I know that if I go outside and sit on the porch in the sunshine and there's grass and there's trees, I end up relaxing so much more. And then the words flow onto my paper more easily. It
Mm.
it simply is the way it is. Like I my one of my children is much happier sitting on the dock by the lake that's by our house, and the entire time we had to do journal writing for homework back in 4th grade. That was her favorite place to go. Like it was just she went to sit at the end of a dock. So if you think about back to when you were 12, that's probably about, you might go a little earlier, might go a little later, but there's going to be a common theme in all those things and places you enjoy being that will actually help you be in the right space. And so if you go to one of those spaces that's similar to where it relaxed, and then you start doing your brainstorming and you start writing down what you really want to tell your clients and what you really want to tell the people who you want to come work in your sphere, whether, like it's one of those things where if you can relax that way, it actually helps. And then on top of that, once you've relaxed and you start doing that brainstorming, your client message is actually going to come through so much more clear as to what the key point is that you need that client to do.
You're so right that like some of my best one-liners, like my greatest headlines come when I'm just sitting staring in space, like outside in a nice
Yeah.
comfortable place, like a cafe with my cocktail or coffee or something. And then I'll be like, put it in the phone for later. Absolutely. Yeah. What we
Yeah.
call it, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, like, for me, like, it's easy to go sit on my porch and have my feet in the grass and the sun beating down, I mean, like, it doesn't cost anything, I mean, like, it's really simple to do, but people don't think to do that because they're so used to the fact that they have to, like, go sit in an office or they have to go sit in and they have to have their computer in front of them or they have to. No, no, literally just go sit out in nature or wherever you're most comfortable. For me it's nature, so I'm like, yes, let me go out and be barefoot in the grass and let the sun come down, and I just sit there, and sometimes I sit there for 10 minutes and then all of a sudden the words just flow. And you
Mhm.
don't even have, like, literally, yes, phone, tiny little notepad and a paper, pencil and paper. Like it doesn't even have to, like, in fact, sometimes the less high tech heck, it's even better. During the winter, I have a candle that I light because that at least kind of mimics the, summer sun for me. I like, it's not perfect, but it's something that I can bring inside and do inside when it's snowing outside. You know, like so there are ways to do all of these things, but really to relax into that authentic voice, you have to relax enough so that you can hear your authentic voice.
Mm.
And sometimes it takes practice. Like it might be, you need to go do that for 10 minutes a day for a week before it really starts flowing easily, because, you kind of put a word dam in your subconscious because of teachers telling you you can't write or you can't spell, or that's a crazy idea, or you've got all of those crazy beliefs that other people have implanted in your head for so many years that sometimes you have to sit and just play with it for a while until you're actually able to relax enough to do the writing.
And some of us have a personality where relaxation just freaked me out for a very long time. It took a lot of practice and meditation and I still have to consciously think about it. It's like, okay, now I'm going to relax. A-type Capricorn. I'm going to give myself this time to relax. Everything has to be black and white like that. And that
Yeah.
took a lot of learning. So just to relax in itself without the writing or without anything else was just one of my things that I needed to work on as a business owner. Because I don't know if you notice some of my old posts, a lot of it's like self-care, self-care, self-care. And that's because for me, it was huge. Otherwise, you just keep burning yourself out. So learning to relax as a business owner, a lot of people in here will probably have that as like either they're learning it or they haven't started learning it. So that's a good point to bring up.
Well, and I mean, there is a reason why there's the tale, like, or the saying. I shouldn't say it's kind of old wives' tale, concept, but like your best ideas come when you're in the shower.
Mhm.
There is a reason for that. Like this is not something that is like rocket science, and this is something that they've known for, probably since we started writing back however many, thousands of years ago. Like as soon as somebody started writing for the first time, they're like, "Oh, my best ideas come when it's XYZ," right? And that's what made it so that they could keep writing on those pieces of papyrus or clay tablets or what like I think this is something that we just innately have forgotten over time because that's not what we've been taught. And
Mhm.
so I think that's really it's so much easier to write your hook story for the copywriting if you have the picture of what your ideal client needs, because it's what you were so many years ago, or that your business needs to have that one person feel a certain way after you've taken care of doing something. Like I would, for instance, if I had a car company that did my service for my car, and their copy told me that I would feel a certain way afterwards because that's how they feel after somebody has taken care of their car. I mean, like it makes it so it resonates more with all those people who are looking at who do I go with, because I would rather go with somebody that I can tell is actually telling me the truth about how they feel after they have somebody help them. Like as a coach and as an editor, I actually stepped into being an author in some anthologies so that I actually knew what it felt like to be on the other side.
Mm.
And that was really a hard step to take. Like like that was scary, right? Like it's scary to step into it, but like if you're coaching and you haven't ever done something and then you step into it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, now I know how my client will totally feel, and how do I make that client feel better about that?" That's what you want in your copy,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
it shows you know.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And that brings me to a point, like there's two ways to choose your client avatar. So either you're kind of like have a clear vision on your dream client who's just, made up and you're like, oh, I really want to work with these people. Um, Either you have that or you have no idea. And in which case I had no idea for my other two, but I really didn't. I was like, I don't know how I made the second business actually work. I don't know, because I had no ideal client at all. I just went for it. And then in this business, somebody said to me, your ideal client is probably you, however many years ago, if you're a serial businesspreneur. And that was me. So my ideal client was me. So I literally feel like in my body, like how painful it is to not know where to get leads from, to wish that you just had a steady like income of leads and sales, not knowing sales. Like I didn't know those skills back then. And I was just like, somehow I innately knew that that's what was missing, but a lot of people don't. Or they know marketing, but marketing is so big. I mean, it could be Google, could be Facebook, could be this, could be that, could be organic, and it just it's so overwhelming. And even as a marketer, I look at stuff and I, all this AI stuff is very overwhelming for me, and I'm trying to get into that. So again, I'm in that cycle of I'm overwhelmed. Eventually that will pan out because I'm, learning it, but the other marketing stuff. So I understand that. And those kind of words that come up for me, the energetics, are what I use in my copy. And we will be going into the energetics of words as well in one of our other trainings, but it just resonated with me what you said about your clients. So that's one way to choose like how to write your client avatar and who to write to and really resonate with them. I find it easier just because I'm writing to me essentially. So it's nice and easy when you can just use an old version of yourself and write from there.
It does make it a lot easier, and it ends up being, and that's the other thing that I think a lot of people, a lot of companies and a lot of coaches, they're using boilerplate language.
Yeah.
And I think that that really is hard, because then you're not saying, I'm this person and I've had this experience, and then suddenly, they're talking about their story, but then suddenly they switch into this boilerplate language, and it doesn't, and then so suddenly you're authentic, but then you're not authentic. And for a lot of people, that's kind of a turn off too. So the boilerplate language is great as a starting point, but then to shift it so that it's really who you are versus who the person who wrote it is. I mean, like, that's the one thing I always find most interesting. And of course, because I do books, like, this is something as an editor I laugh about an awful lot, because I sometimes have clients come to me and they have had somebody help them write their book, which is perfectly fine. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having a ghostwriter. But the point that I end up making is, but then you're going to go on podcasts and you're going to do interviews and you're going to do all these things, and these people are going to come work with you, and your book no longer sounds like you.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so washed out because you're using a ghostwriter, or I mean, like, so really the key really is to be able to relax and really say, you know what, my authentic voice is the most important voice that I need to have.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have copy that sounds like Queen's English, and then you've got a Southern drawl when they actually hear you for the first time.
Yeah. Or what I'm seeing a lot right now is Chat GPT. Like it grinds my nerves. Empower your such and such, activate your such and such. It's just, once you've like read 100, use chat, we will use Chat GPT in here, but it's as a base, not as the actual writer. But I can just tell when someone's used Chat GPT to write something, because when I'm searching for something or researching for a client, I'm just like, it's the same words, it's the same wording style. Like Chat GPT has a style just the same way as, like you say, someone who writes in the perfect Queen's English. And you can see that, and that's not the authentic person at all. Like in the
Yeah,
beginning of the business, I used to come on, videos, and I'd have a suit and I'd have my hair done. And then I was like, that's not authentic me at all. Like me authentic me is my scruffy hair, my tattoos, my dog here snoring,
exactly.
And so my writing
Exactly.
likes that too. Like people are afraid to use like, I don't know, swear, like a lot of people don't like swear words, but I mean, honestly, they don't like swear words. They're probably not my client either, things like that. Like that's an
Exactly.
extreme example, but stuff like that.
Exactly. I had a wonderful client. She's dyslexic, and she makes up these amazing words because that's just who she is. And she had somebody read her book before she sent it to me for editing. She's like, she was almost in tears because she felt like they wanted her to rewrite her entire book. And she's talking about what it's like being dyslexic. and what it's like going through the school system and the workforce, and trying to hold a 9 to 5 job, and having to read and do all of these things that, as somebody who has severe dyslexia, it's near next to impossible to do it exactly the way someone who's neurotypical does it. So, but if she wrote it like somebody was neurotypical would write it, then it loses the full meaning of who she is. And she's amazing. Like, I love her dearly. Like, she's probably one of my favorite clients because she's just so authentically herself and doesn't worry about anybody else and what they're thinking, other than the fact that she was like, but they said this, my book's not going to sell, and blah, blah. And you know what? It became an Amazon bestseller. So really, seriously, let's talk about this, as the fact that people wanted to read her book and they resonated with her, and therefore they were buying her book because they resonated with how she sounded and that they could relate to her. And that is so critically important, because I think that we are in a world at this point where everybody is a copycat. Like, everybody ends up being so identical that they're not standing out anymore.
Yeah. And the ones that do, and here's another thing that trolls will get you really bad if you do start to stand out, and that's a jealousy thing. So that's all something like I always teach my clients, like when you start getting trolls, you're starting to win. People are noticing you. So use that as a positive. And you'll find the more individual someone is online, the more trolls they'll get. And then I love watching those people handle it, because they're like, well, now I know I'm famous, you know? So these trolls are just part of that. And that's the people who want to be like everybody else that aren't going to get anywhere, that are staying exactly where they are in their little box, doing their 9 to 5 jobs and not running businesses that are successful.
Exactly. In fact, Trent Shelton has this, and I'm not gonna say the quote exactly the way he says it, and I know, because I don't have it word for word, but basically, trolls and haters are just confused followers.
I like that.
And I laugh about that, but like, I keep that in the back of my head because I'm like, they're following me enough to troll me, so therefore they love me. They just don't realize how much they love me. Like,
Yeah.
because if they didn't love me and want to follow me, then they'd be trolling somebody else, which is perfectly fine. They're hearing my message. They're just not totally ready for it yet. That's okay.
Right. Yeah. And when they evolve and get over their jealousy and actually start to want to become something better and start to do the work, they'll come cycle back around and be like, oh, I remember you, because and you're what I need. So I hope that that's what happens to all of them. But here's another thing that's really good about trolls is they're great for the algorithm. I'll argue with them all day long on my clients' ads. And one of my clients was like, why? I would never have answered. And I'm like, because look at your ad. Like, it started to get more likes a couple of weeks after I was arguing with this guy, because the algorithm sees action on it. It doesn't look at what the action is. So I was just sitting back and forward with this troll, and I was just hiding them. So nobody else needs to read it, I was just having a great time. And I was like, well, thank you very much for the algorithm. That really helped our ads.
Exactly.
Positive. They're leaving a comment, and that's a good thing. It doesn't matter how ugly it is, just hide it. You're good. Just say, it's the universe helping you out in a way, one way or another.
It is. And at some point, that person might actually become a client because they finally gotten to it, but they won't become that client if you can't be authentic. Right? Like, they're not going to troll you if you're not authentic, because you're just like everybody else.
Right.
And, I like to say, one of my favorite thoughts, and this is always the picture in my head, right? Like I do books, but I like talking about cookies when I'm talking to authors, because, everybody has the same base cookie dough, and you can put the chocolate chips in, or you can put coconut flakes in, or you could put nuts in, or you could, like, the cookie dough, no matter what cookie dough you make, is essentially the exact same cookie dough. It just has an extra ingredient here, an extra ingredient there. And that's what makes it special. Toll House cookies would not be special if it hadn't been for the fact that somebody decided that they were going to put chunks of that chocolate And then Nestle was like, oh, maybe we should start making it into chocolate chips. I mean, like that would not have become a brand if somebody hadn't done something that was outside the box thinking,
Mm. Yeah.
authentic self thinking, right? Like, so like, that's really like you have to relax into it. You just, and there's going to be that imposter syndrome telling you you shouldn't do it and that you can't write and that you can't, you know what? The best thing on the planet to do is just sit and brainstorm and just write it out. Worst case scenario, you're uncomfortable with it and you put it in this group, or or you share it with somebody else and be like, how does this resonate with you?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Because because if it resonates with somebody who isn't your ideal client, it's going to totally resonate with your ideal client. Or if they're like, you know what, that word right there is just not quite the right word. Is there a different word? It'll help you fix that at that point and it will be beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, words have such power. We talked about it in the green room. Oh my goodness. Using the word free, don't ever do that ever, ever on anything, ever, if you want to sell anything. Me and my client have both done an experiment in the beginning that spent a lot of money using the free and did not work out. People that like resonate with the word free are never going to want to pay for anything. So I see a lot of people using it on free landing pages. It's like, we know it's free when we get there. We're just going to download it, right? Don't put the word free. It's going to bring a totally different amount of people, and it's going to clog up your funnel, and it's going to fill up your email drip feed with a ton of people who are never going to buy anything and probably won't read. It's much,
Exactly.
energetics of that word are ugly. Don't use them.
Exactly. And it's one of those things too, they do the there's the mystery cozy group and then there's the romance writers group that do their stuff your Kindle day where, you've got thousands of free books that you can download.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's bringing attention to your name, but still doesn't do you any good if the people do not actually read your book
Mhm. And that's a good
and
thing on.
leave a review. Like, I mean, like, so like in the book industry, free is great. Like having a chapter free as a lead magnet, not necessarily a bad thing, but having a whole book free, that might not really get you what you want because then it's going to be asking you about how to do all of the things. I mean, like it's doing the algorithm shifting, but it's not necessarily shifting it in a good way because you're got thousands of downloads, but the reviews are what counts. So you've got lots of people download it, but may never ever read it.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of doing that too, that I've downloaded some people's free books and I get around to reviewing them because they weren't something I paid for. And there is that psychological thing. You pay for it, you're more likely to do it, and therefore you get better results. So,
And this all comes down to valuing yourself, and we'll probably have a lesson on that somewhere in here. But you're so right. Like Frank Kearns is one of the best marketers out there. That guy's made millions and millions online. He's teaching AI, and he decided to give away his like first 8 courses. That's at least $8,000. I still
yeah.
have never gone through them. I
I,
paid.
I know, I know. I did the same thing. Grant Cardone did something similar over between October and December this year. Like it was a Facebook ad and I clicked on it because like I know Grant Cardone has some really great
Yeah, really
business
good.
stuff. And so I was like, oh, I'll click on that because it's his 10x whatever. And I have it sitting in my email and I haven't gotten around to it yet. So,
To it. Although the value is in there, there's no value to it because we didn't exchange energetically for it.
exactly,
That's
exactly.
important for
So
to know when it comes to free stuff.
very
Free,
important.
free bad. Free bad.
Yes,
Your word.
yes.
Charge your worth. Even if it's $10, charge something because people are going to look at that more seriously.
Even if you charge five is better. Like I tell authors if they want to have a easy like 99 cents, if they want to do a 99-cent 2-week period when they first release their book, that's a great thing to do. But it's 99 cents. And then after 2 weeks, bump it back up, put it up to the $2.99, but don't put it as 0. Don't put it as free. Because it doesn't get you the energetics that you need. I mean,
Yeah,
that's really the key.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, energetics awards is so, and money, like money's just transaction, you know?
Yeah.
Especially people like, oh, I don't have the money. It's like, you're telling me that you don't have the money to buy. How many times have you run up a credit card to 5 grand and paid it off and you have nothing to show for it? So don't tell me you don't have the money. There's always something more behind that. That's a
Yeah.
different story though, for sure. But just leading
But
in from energetics.
But it does go into the authentic writing, because if you know that you do that, your ideal client's going to do it too.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
might be worse at it than what you are, because, 8 years ago, you might have been doing all of that and never done any of the programs that you paid for. And then you've gotten around to doing them, over time, and you've learned to actually, oh, if I'm going to pay for something, here's a good energetic thing that I actually completed. I mean, like it's all about that. I mean, really, at this point, I really authenticity and the right alignment with your energy into what you're focusing on. So very important. Like when you're scattered and all over the place, that's a challenge. Like and I feel that way too. Like there are some things that I actually enjoy doing, but they're not necessarily the right energetic thing for me actually to do, because it's not part of what my focus needs to be.
Hmm.
But really, for the ads, you're the only one who knows your business. For your funnels, you're really the only one who knows your business from start to finish and where you see your business going. So you really do have to write, at the very least, the very basic copy that you're going to be putting up there. But if you hire somebody else to do it, then you need to make sure that it's still you and not the generic carbon copy of everybody else,
Yeah.
because
And the
it's
scary
not worth
part
it.
of hiring someone these days is a lot of people are using Chat GPT. So,
Which you can go do and use for yourself,
right.
and just do it yourself. And then you don't, like you're at least putting the right things in that work for you, versus what they're just using as a cookie cutter for 90% of what they're doing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're saving their prompts and then just tweaking it a little bit for whoever they've just gotten to pay them.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's better to do it yourself, kids, for sure. Or make sure you find out, like I do know a couple of really good copywriters that can write
Mhm.
stuff, but they're very on the spiritual level, which is why I like dealing with spiritual people. They're channeling on a different wavelength than someone who's just doing it as a quick business or a side hustle.
Exactly.
They're charging
Exactly.
a lot of money, like a lot. And she told me her prices, my eyes watered, but I was like, it's definitely worth it. But as a copy, you're used to people on the Chat GPT, like doing it as a side hustle, 500 for this or $1,000 for a landing page. She's like,
Mhm.
no, two to three. I was like, yeah. So in my mind, like I like paying for stuff I know I'm going to get results from. I'd rather pay big money than cheap, because cheap I can do myself, like you said, easily. But when I
Very
get
cool.
something done well, I want to pay a lot of money for it.
Hmm.
And a lot of people starting out business, when they're afraid of money themselves or afraid of charging what they're worth, they don't factor that into your client avatar. Like, I'm your ideal client. I will pay a lot of money for something without even thinking. Like this course was an online course. I saw this like to learn to be a marketer. There's lots of them, but that particular one I really resonated with the lady, and I spent a whole ton of money, like probably more than I've spent on anything before, apart from my actual degree, and straight off an online course, only in a couple of days of knowing her. But her message was that good, and that drastically changed my life. Have I got other courses that were much cheaper and taught me probably more and more deep and more technical stuff afterwards? Yeah, I got a $97 course that taught me way more technical stuff. But if I hadn't done that first course and laid the groundwork, it probably wouldn't have been as useful for me, that second one, although it taught me a lot more for a lot less money. But I might not have done it because it was $97, if you know what I mean. Whereas what
Yeah.
cut paid for the big one, I learned so much with that, more so about funnels than ads, and then I picked up this other one later on. So yes, there are clients that will pay you a whole ton of money, and you want to kind of focus on them if you have a high ticket offer and not be working with the freebies and giving away the freebies. and worrying about those guys because they're not going to pay for your high ticket offer.
Exactly. And I really feel like if you want to have a free lead magnet or whatever as part of your funnel, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it
No,
really needs to, like, but it really needs to be something that shows how you are different.
yeah,
Because again, and not put a lot, and I'm going to say, and while I say not put a lot of effort into it, but you don't want to give away everything that you're actually going to be charging for on, a PDF, because that is so easy to do too, because you've got all this knowledge and you want to give and you want to share, and so, but there's a balance there between what you're going to have on a lead magnet and what you really want clients to be paying for.
hmm,
So there's the, again, there's always this balance in business, but it really, I would rather pay, and I did much like you, like I paid a whole bunch of money for a coach that I really resonated with, and I worked with her for 2 years, and I got a whole bunch of information. I got really good and really aligned with where I was going and what I was doing. And then I went and I pulled other courses that I knew I needed. Like I took a class where I could do better marketing and copywriting and understand that side of the writing part that I needed to do to help my author clients, because authors, it's something that I can do on top of. It's not necessarily something I charge, but it's something that I can add into the conversation when I work with people, because that matters to me, to be able to help them at least have the right direction. And because a lot of the clients I work with do self-publishing and they are indie authors. And that means that they're trying to market and do all of these things. And while I'm not going to say, I'm going to do this for you, if I can give them some hints and tips as to which direction they can work towards, or say, you know what, this is something you need to, like, think about as you're doing the marketing, because I have just enough knowledge that I know what they need to work towards, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one who's going to be setting up their funnel or set up their ads, or, like, they need to go find the person who's the right person to do that for them. But
hmm,
it's worth having some of that extra discussion. But if I didn't go and take that little bit of an extra course, then I would feel like I wasn't doing as big a service for my clients. But the flip side is that I also don't just offer that as a standalone, and it's part of our natural conversations as we're working the book towards the publication date. So, it's a, but for me that resonates to do. But that's not something I would put as a free lead magnet. That's not something that, like, because that authentically, I'm not the marketing ad person.
yeah. And lead magnets are tricky because if you don't know who, like I didn't know when my business was set up the way I bought it, which was very masculine. It was an ad that worked very well into a sales pipeline of calls, and I hate calls. I literally hate calls. It took me a year to actually say that to myself. Like I absolutely despise them. That's, and that's my whole business was. So over time that like ground to a halt. But I maybe have 13 or 14 different lead magnets that I tried in different things. So without like really knowing your ideal client avatar and making sure your business model is set up and working for you how you want it to, which is why I teach this in this element of our course. Like you're going to keep throwing out lead magnets more and more because like the copy isn't bringing in the right people. You don't know who the right people are. And then of course, what can't even remember what the lead magnets are now, but I vaguely think of them. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know who was coming in to look at them. So of course they didn't download them, and then they couldn't go into my pipeline because I did have a drip feed at that point, but it was very specific to the clients from my ads, if you know what I mean. So like you say, I was all over the place then without knowing that ideal client and really having my business set up the way I wanted.
Yes. And so that really, like, I think that's the best thing to do. And really that ideal client avatar, that soul client, that soul contract client, whatever terminology you want to use. I always going and making sure that what I have just written still looks right for that person is so critical too. Like I might have it, and over time, my ideal client avatar has actually gotten clearer than it was when I first started out. And so I myself am going back and I'm updating the copy on my website over the next couple weeks because my ideal client has shifted just enough that what I have out on my website from before is not necessarily the right wording
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah. Oh, the
And it
same.
just needs some less weeks.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, and that's going to happen anyway. Just businesses will evolve. You evolve. Like we grow older, we change, we decide we want something different. The clients that are coming, and that's what happened with me. Those ads, the way the business was set, I was bringing me clients and I was like, these guys are not ready for ads. So if that's who I'm attracting, then I'll do something for those people. But then the next time I do ads, they're going to be very different. They're not going to attract those people. And so your client avatar is going to change over time. You might build up more than one. At the right now, I have more than one. And that's because that client, that my ideal client that came to me was basically me, but she was already set up. Her funnel was already like ready to go. She was my first ever client, believe it or not. And I was like, and after I had more clients after, I look back and I was like, no, she was my absolute dream ideal client. A-type personality, the girl who was trying to figure it, like she had everything set up, really beautiful, like big funnel. She'd spent a lot of money on it. It was huge. It was all like, there was a lot going on there, that she'd had a developer done. And then, just really easy to work with, really hands-on, really smart, like A-type personality business girl. That she was never going to go back to a 9 to 5. And I was like, ooh, that was me, my ideal client avatar, right? Is me. So she kind of showed up and then showed me the way. And I've learned a lot from her just watching her. But that was basically because she was set up so well. I just figured out what was broken. So I could just go and look at everything she had, tidy it up, set the ads up. Her ads have been like killing it way above industry standard. Every time we've set them up, we just set up 5 recently. She was getting like 50 cents opt-ins where industry standard is like $3. And that's because she had everything set up. Her copy was insanely good. And then I came along and I could just do the ads. And I was like, this is what I want for my future. So here we are in the group so that I could set people up to that level before they're ready for ads. And some will join me, some won't, some will go off and do their thing, and that's fine. But this will be like automated pretty much. So, I mean, and that took a year to progress through that. And that's only by learning and watching and speaking and trying and doing and failing like 13 or 14 times with these different, lead-ins, funnel. Oh my God, you should just, maybe I'll show them one time in my Go High Level just how much crap I have in there that's now defunct that I tried that didn't work, and I was like, fail, 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 fail until I got to where I needed to be.
Well, and that's the part that I really do like about writing my own copy and writing it from my authentic self is because at least I can look and I can say, you know what, that worked really well, but it really wasn't to that ideal client avatar. And that's why I got what I got.
Mm-hmm.
And that was written okay, but it was at least closer to really my ideal client avatar. So is my ideal client avatar really the right ideal client avatar even?
Right.
I mean, like being able to see how those progressed and how that happened and how that worked and how that, I mean, like when I first started, I didn't think that I was going to have 90% of my clients be spiritual.
Me neither.
Or I mean, like I didn't, and I didn't think that others would be as neurodiverse. I mean, like, and in some cases, the spirituality and neurodiverse kind of go together. But like that's who I'm called to help, and I enjoy helping them, and because I like making sure and that they're writing in their voice so that they keep their voice. So when they're out doing podcasts or interview, like I don't want them sounding totally different
Mm-hmm.
in their writing, in their book. And so keeping their authentic voice in their book is so important, and that's just, it's just so nice to be able to sit in that space and know that that diverse person is not trying to be the stereotypical person
Mm-hmm.
and blend in with everything. And that is so what we have been so taught for so many years is blend in, don't stand out, be like everybody else. We don't want to be any different than anybody else because that just means that, we're gonna have the trolls or we're gonna have, you know, but
It's safe, yeah.
but if
But
you think about it, the most successful people on this planet are not like everybody else.
no,
You look at Steve Jobs, you look at Bill Gates, like no matter how you feel about them politically, they decided not to be like everybody else. They decided to try something really different. Tony
yeah.
Robbins, same thing. I mean, like you look at Gloria Feinstein, and you look at, I mean, like you look at all of these amazing people, and they chose not to be like everybody else, and they
Yeah.
stood out, and they took their lumps, and they took their criticisms, and they took, but you know what? Look at the end result that they have after they've done all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like you got to rise above it and you got to stay on mission. And the
Hmm.
mission isn't, and then the mission is not easy. It's never easy. My goodness.
No.
So many times, every time I had a failed this or failed that, but I look back on it now and just think, my copy, looking back on
Mhm.
my Instagram, I kept a few of them from the beginning days. I was like, no wonder nobody clicked on these are awful. And I thought they were really good, new business
I
owner.
know. I
I'm like,
know, right?
girl, fancy, and I made them in Canva and I'm great. And now just look back and go, oh God, how terrible. But I was out there trying. And if I hadn't made those mistakes, not mistakes, if I hadn't have tried and they didn't work, I wouldn't have then gone on to improve.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, really, so I I actually one of the author anthologies that I actually wrote in, I talk about the fact that if you take fail and you just flip it around, it's really you're learning and you're intuitively figuring out things, and then you're allowing for the change, and then you just have to follow through with what you've just learned to make it better. Like I mean, like it's not a fail. It if you look at if you look at it as you're learning and it's intuitively growing you, and you're allowing for that growth, and then you follow through with new steps to get to some new spot, then you're better off. I mean, like that's the beauty of being who we are.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think also having timelines helps too.
Mhm.
I remember seeing a beautiful visual and it was like year one, year two, year three of business. Year one is just like like a line like that. And year two is like less dense. And then year three is like, doo, 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 and it starts to go up. And that's exactly how it is. Year one and two, you're just a squirrel. You're chasing your tail. You're trying everything. But people get online and then someone promised them they could make 100 grand in like 5 minutes. And so they literally think in 6 months, a year, like, oh, I'm not making 100 grand. They're failing. It's like, no, you're building your box.
And there are some people who can, but they're so energetically aligned with what they're doing, and they're so focused on that one little thing that maybe they're able to do that. But most of us are not
No.
necessarily energetically aligned because we've got all these hidden beliefs, and we've got all this garbage from our past, and we've got, you
Money
know,
blocks, not worthy blocks. Oh my God, how many things have I gone through? Phew, nobody tells you about like what a self education journey like starting a business is.
yeah, yeah. Like if anybody had told me that I would have been dredging up stuff from like when I was a kid to figure out why that block was in existence, I'd be like, oh no, no, that block doesn't exist. Yes, that block totally existed. Like yes, yes, and yes, I myself, like I have I have got had Reiki, and I have had theta, sessions. I've had, like I've done lots of things to move some of these blocks because they were so deep I couldn't get to them myself, and yet until I did those things, some of what I was writing was just not in the right space
Mhm.
and it needed to be adjusted. I mean, like that self-healing journey, that self-expression journey, that self-care journey, like all of that, like it helps you get down to your authentic self. So all of that is not even like I can be like, oh, I'm not where I wanted to be and not where I thought I needed to be. But some of that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 year journey that I've been on, I've needed to heal a whole bunch of stuff so that I could really understand how to be the best person I could be for my clients.
Mhm. Yeah, especially with something as personal as writing. Oh my gosh, it's not like, you can style it out. Someone can write for you about your Windows business and then you're pretty much done. But as far as like, being a face on it, but if you're a coach or a mentor or any kind of business support person, like you have to do this inner work. You have to.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
me, my biggest thing was the witch wound when it came to the spirit, because I was like you, I never expected all my clients to be spiritual. And then at one point I took stock and even the men had activated and were like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
it didn't work. I was like, what? I'd worked with them for a while before I even asked them the question. And I was like, it just suddenly I realized my whole platter of clients were all in the spiritual realm, not just the one who was obvious, the psychic, but all of them were inside. And now I have one of my clients, we hardly ever talk business, but we call once a week. He just asks me what I've been up to, like what witchy stuff I'm doing and what weird drum circles I've been, he's so into the spiritual. I think he just like keeps me on for that. Never mind the ads. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, no, but that's one of those things where I really feel that that's when we're our authentic self, when we do what we need to do to be our authentic self, when we're able to stop thinking that we are in imposter syndrome or that we have to cookie cutter with everybody else, or I think that's when the magic happens.
Mhm.
Actually, I know that's when the magic happens. The
For me,
magic happens
which wound
when,
was
yeah, yeah. And it is and it's something that's unique to everybody, like like there is no way I could tell my any of my clients what they actually needed to do on their self care evolution type of journey. Like I can't necessarily tell them that, but I can tell which ones have been doing a lot of work before they actually send me their stuff for editing versus the ones who have just dipped a toe in and then pulled it back out and said, nope, here's my book.
what do
Well,
you say? What would you say the difference is? Like, can you verbalize that? Like how you pick up?
oh, completely. Because those that have done some of the work and they might not be done doing the healing work themselves, but they're at the space where they've done enough that what they're writing in their book is more authentic, but they're also open. Like for me, it's all about it ends up being ease and flow. Like it is so easy to work with those that have already been open and on their spiritual journey and healed enough. And because sometimes what they're writing in their books is really very hard to read. And sometimes it's very hard for them to write it. So like it's some of it's really deep and it's really personal and sometimes it needed to be put out and it's not supposed to be in the book, but they had to write it in order to get it out so that they could do something about it.
Mm.
The ones who like drag their feet and are kicking and screaming and it's like pulling teeth. They don't want to write, they don't want to stay on schedule, they don't want to, like even if they have finished their book, they'll tell me how horrible it was to write this book, that they're just not really sure. And I know for sure that they just have not done that work to
Mm.
work on whatever is their block. And it really is, it's a block. Like it's simply a block that they've got, but they weren't touching it and they were just pushing their way through. And like it was like pulling teeth, like totally painful, totally uncomfortable. they were my soul clients. There's no doubt in my mind that that person was a soul client that I needed to work with. But that's also why I started realizing if I talk to them before they actually come to me for editing, like we have a call, we talk, I see where they are in their process. I set the intention for myself and for my clients that they call and talk to me about 6 months before they really are ready for me to do the editing. Because if they call and talk to me and I talk to them and we talk about their authentic self and how to relax into writing and how to pull their soul writing out into their lives, by the time they come to me 6 months later, their book might still not be beautiful and easy and flowing, but it's sure a lot better than those that I didn't have that earlier call with.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I mean, it's all about the energetics. It's all about the alignment. It's all about the authenticity. And there are days I struggle with it myself, and I am going to be the first. Like there are days where I've got imposter syndrome that's popping its ugly head up. There are days where I've got some blocks. Like I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to look at this. I'm feel like I'm coming down with a cold. And, it's really because that's my body's response to I've got a block that I'm ignoring, and I get cold symptoms. I might not actually have a cold, but I get cold symptoms, and it's because I'm recognizing that there's a block there that I actually have to work through
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
it's something that, the onion layer has came off and the next layer of onion needs to be taken care of. I mean, like
Right.
eventually I'll get down to the bottom of the onion and I will be this beautiful, relaxed person. But, we're human and we're on this spiritual growth journey anyway. So might as well embrace it while we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny, your clients, they're just people, so it doesn't matter whether it's writing a book or setting up a business, they all have these blocks. And I'm sure like,
Mhm.
I noticed that some of the group were like, where's the funnel? And I'm like, well, if you don't start at the beginning, what's the point in the funnel? And that was pretty much how my calls went, really, if I summed them up too. Like, I'd love to run ads for you, but you're not ready. Like, you don't have a funnel. Like, what am I running ads to? What's the point? You're gonna waste your money. I don't like they want quick fix. They want it done right now, here. They're like, you have to go back and do the work from the start. Save yourself a year like I did and actually start from the beginning and just take your time and breathe. Get set up right with your copy. Know what you're doing with that copy. That's the foundation for your house. Like everything you build from here will be great if you get this right. Take it from someone who didn't and spent a year and many thousands of dollars before I figured it out and went, nope. But if I hadn't had that year, like we said, I wouldn't know that this is where I needed to be. So it's not about making anybody feel bad about the stuff that they've done or the copy that they had. Now you know how to go and polish all that into the right thing for you.
Right. And it's really, it's really about feeling into where you want to go.
Yeah, and if you don't go
Right.
somewhere, you know you don't want to be there. How do you know you don't want to be there if you're just starting at the beginning? You got to try something. Just one.
Exactly. Exactly. Like for me, I really like doing the one-on-one editing work. And there were people who suggested I try these other things. And I did try some of the other things, and it didn't resonate with me because my purpose and my path have me doing one-on-one editing to make sure that authors keep their voices. But that didn't mean that I couldn't create a funnel to have them potentially learn how to do some of the basic copy editing stuff before they sent me their book. I mean, like, and anybody could take that course and that's fine. Like, I haven't been running ads to it because I've had other things going on in my life in the last year and I didn't have the space to take on any more clients. So if I had had too many people going through the basic course and then they all wanted to become, like be like, "Oh, we're ready for our book to come to you." I was not set up and ready for that because of personal reasons for the last year. But like there are some things that I tell every client over and over and over again. And so those are the things that I can then free up my time by having these videos sitting out there that they pay me like $5 to watch. Literally just pay me $5 to watch these videos because that will save me at least 3 or 4 hours worth of time on their books. I mean, like that's the way it works. So like for me, it's a very simple thing to do, but until I'd had enough clients, I didn't realize that that was having that in place first made it
Mhm.
easier. So
Yeah.
having the call first and then saying, "Oh yes, and by the way, there's also this $5 course out here that you can take that will simplify what you send to me in the future." You know, it like I added that extra little piece in after I realized I needed that extra little piece in. So it shifted how I was doing things, but it made it simpler for me in the long run. Whereas there are some people who really want to have that big group coaching so that they can have lots of people, and that's perfect for those because that's their path. That's not where my path lies. And so, you know, knowing where your path actually lies is so important too while you're writing that copy, because if somebody is telling you you need to do, you know, you want to have 3 or 4 different group coaching programs and blah, 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 maybe that's not really your path. Or maybe that's not your path right now. And it is 5 years down the road. But in while you're writing your copy, if you don't have a clear vision of where you really want to go and who your client is and who you want to have called into your life to help, you know, I would prefer to have fun and ease versus pulling teeth. Like that's
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
so anything that, you know, you can write in your copy that's authentically you helps also take care of that pulling teeth issue. You know, I mean, like that's really it boils down to being authentically you. You are the only person, just like I'm the only person who knows my path. You're the only person who knows your path. You know, you can take all of these great ideas out there, and there are thousands of them. And goodness
Mm.
only knows, I get Facebook ads for many, 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 many different types of courses and many, many different types of do your business this way and do your business that way. And I look at some of them and I'm like, sure, I'll watch the free master class because it might give me some new insight. And sometimes I'm like, no, that's just, I know that person is not for me based on the way they wrote their ad.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
okay because that person is right for somebody else. It's just I'm not their ideal client.
Mhm. No, totally get that. That's why, like, knowing your ideal client when you're writing your ads and your drip feed and your landing page and your website are all super important, and having a cohesive brand across them too. A lot of people like will have a different style of thing here, there, and everywhere because they got someone to write their landing page, but they wrote their website and then they're on social media in a different way. Like that's not a brand when that happens either.
Hmm.
Cohesiveness
Exactly.
across all that, which is why I just cross post on everything. We can just post on all the social media at the same time. It's the same thing going out everywhere. I only focus on Facebook because that's where I work, but everything gets spread out everywhere just in case, you know, because Facebook might close one day, and then I'll have all my stuff on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever I need it to be. So yeah. Well, this has been awesome conversation. Thank you. I hope you guys got something from writing from your authentic voice. Any last tips on how they can really write authentically? Mine, okay, so I have a tip, and it would be like when you think about writing authentically, like what do you feel? Like where's the negative emotion? And then if you're getting that, with me, it was a witch wound. So it was like, what will people think of me if I start talking spirituality? Which is where it led me into the conversations with my clients. I dipped in a little bit, found out they were all spiritual. I was like, oh my God, like everybody I've attracted was spiritual. So, and that really helped me move forward on being more spiritual and what I was putting out there in the universe. And the hits I've got on TikTok and my Facebook since then are above and beyond anything. And I haven't run ads for a while at this point either. So my organic, since I started talking from the spiritual level, went, and I hated organic. I didn't use or I didn't, it's never worked for me because I wasn't talking authentically. Started
Mhm.
talking authentically, and my video views are going like this on all the platforms. And I was like, oh, you know, it's really exciting.
Mhm.
But I definitely had a witch wound. Like people are going to make fun of me And I just, that bothered me. And it was more about my actual personal sphere rather than the trolls and whoever out there on the internet. And that was definitely from childhood, back from being like heavy Christian family, all that kind of stuff. So I had to deal with that to step into that. And that was an actual feeling of like, ugh, and the thought was like, what will they say? What will they think about me? Like, I know I'm going to get these messages from my people, like saying, what the hell, that kind of thing. So that would be my lesson for you guys, is like, where is the blockage? Like, feel it, like, what are you thinking? And then write it down, like journal it, however it is you need to process that to get over that hump to be authentic. And then if Catherine has anything to add.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with that. I would also say, and I do not delve deeply into human design, so I literally am going to just mention human design because once I knew my human design, it made things make so much more sense. But like literally, if you, depending on what's defined and undefined, that also will affect how you write and how you feel when you're writing. Um, and so like, and because I'm an expert, other than the fact that I know that if you are defined, you're going to feel totally different than if you're undefined in certain of the areas. And so for me, I have to have a strong hell yes, but it doesn't come necessarily quickly. Like it might take me a little while to process it. And because of that, like I sometimes have to write and then I have to put the writing aside for a week or two. And that, because I need my ego to get out of the way, because again, goes along with the witch wound. The ego's constantly like blah 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 blah, like telling you what you shouldn't be doing because you're supposed to be safe. Well, congratulations, I need to move forward because my lesson is not to be safe. Like my lesson is to be who I'm meant to be, and being safe is I'm not going to go be shoved off a cliff at this point, that's or burned at a stake, or, like I can get past that ego thing. But, sometimes it takes a week or two, depending on what, like your human design open or defined centers are and how they work. It literally is going to take that sometimes that long for you to be able to feel it in your body. Like, so that's why, like when I say, at the beginning, it might take you 5 or 10 minutes every day writing to really get into that authentic self and relax into your authentic self writing. It might take you 2 weeks, it might take you a month, but it's better to take that time and get into your authentic self and know what yourself is actually trying to do on your path than it is for, I mean, don't let yourself be totally blocked because you suddenly have, stage fright or or whatever, like it's going to cause you to be blocked. But, definitely like flow through it and let it flow. Don't stop. Like if after a month you're not getting somewhere, then, I intend to be in the group, and if you tag me and you're like, I am totally stuck, I will give you other suggestions. Like I don't want to overwhelm people with 100 suggestions, but, like if you get stuck, let me know and I will give you some suggestions to help you get unstuck, because everybody gets stuck at some point. I mean, writer's block is a thing. They wouldn't call it writer's block if it didn't happen to everybody. So at some point or other. So, it is a thing, but like literally, the more you feel in your body, the better off you are when you're writing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
There might be a physical activity that you need to do before you go write.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that you might literally need to go run a mile, if I mean, like if that's what you need to do, you are have your brain and your body relaxed enough to be able to hear your authentic self, do it. Like there's no wrong way or right way, but find the way so that you can actually feel how you're feeling when you're writing, because you don't want to block that authenticity.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, my dear. So, actually, I have a podcast on human design. Laurie Lisai, she was really great. So, if anybody's interested, I'll drop it in the up here on Facebook or down here if it's somewhere else. I'll put a link to that podcast, and then Catherine's in the group too. So, if you want to tag her anytime, feel free. And then, yeah. So you're ready for the next section. So good luck, guys. And if you have any comments or if you want to like have a read, post it in the group of your website or your landing page, get a little feedback. All right. Thanks, everybody.